seeking nuclear disarmament for all, including the original sinners, and both non-proliferation and disarmament, and now on the agenda of the UN Security Council. The Middle East looks like a region in need of a bold, broad approach. Israel and Iran's, this is a good news, officials have held secret meeting talks recently to explore the possibility of declaring the Middle East a nuclear-free zone. This has been reported by the Israeli newspaper Haraz and also leaked by the Australian daily Age. I hope they continue their negotiations to resolve the urgent issues in the Middle East for strengthening the non-proliferation regime and working towards Middle East nuclear-free zone. Let me conclude with a positive note by reciting a poem by one of the most inspiring and greatest Persian poets of the 13th century, Jalaluddin al-Rumi, my favorite, who said that divine love which transcends religious differences, and I quote, "The religion of love is apart from all religions. For lovers, the only religion and creed is God. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi or Zen, not any religion or cultural system. I am not from the East or the West. I belong to be beloved, and have seen the two worlds as one." If we follow Rumi's words of wisdom and leave our differences behind, we can live in a much safer world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your forgiveness, but you did take 13 minutes out of 15. And that's when I've been asking for 7-minute speeches, so I think you've done well, but thank you for that speech. Now I'm going to ask Baqer Moin. Many of you know that he was head of BBC's Persian service. He's always on TV talking about Iran and Islam, and he's author of many books, so it's my pleasure now to hand you over to Baqer Moin.
Thank you very much for that. To be honest, I'm not really a nuclear expert. I just speak on to talk a few words of what I feel about the situation. I think the picture is very complex. If you look at it from the Iranian angle, Iran has been a country at peace with its neighbor for some 200 years. If there has been any problem, it has been aggressed against from the Russian invasion in northern Iran, that some of the Iranian territories have been lost, and the First World War, Second World War, and finally Iraq. The threat to Iran has existed since the revolution, because the revolution has not been recognized by many of the Western powers, and they were hoping that the regime would be removed one way or another. It hasn't. The second factor, which is also important, is that the Islamic regime that has taken over in Iran has been thinking about its survival. Survival has been the key factor in their strategy, setting up various institutions and ensuring that they are not going to be invaded again. And the more you threaten them, the more sense of insecurity would be exacerbated within that country. Now, the problem that it has got, in my view, is that ever since the revolution, Iran hasn't really developed a solid system of governance. It's been moving from one experience to another. It's neither a dictatorship nor a democracy. It's a system with various central authorities in which they contribute, and sometimes negatively, sometimes positively, to what is happening in the country. And for that reason, and specifically in this phase, I think is important to mention, is that negotiation has been always very difficult with Iran, because there is no clear decision-making. Issues are not debated in the Iranian parliament. Issues are often decided in various committees, commissions, that many of them are around, and for that reason, the media do not really participate in the major debate, and a decision that is made, even if it's wrong, they accept. At the same time, various power centers, what they do is that undermine each other. For instance, on the nuclear issue, if you look, those who were in charge 5 years ago. Today they are critical of those who are in charge today, exactly on the same policies. So I'll give you 3 examples. The hostage-taking, the war with Iraq, and now is the 3rd issue that the Iranians have been facing. Because there is no clear decision-making and no core diplomatic approach to the issue, Iran has been, by and large, the loser in the debate. They lost, I feel, during the hostage crisis. They lost during the Iraq-Iran war. They could have had a much better deal out of the whole situation, but they didn't. And I think if they do not put their acts together and make up their mind what they want, they are going to be the loser in this present situation. Okay, winning and losing is interpreted quite differently. The key factor is that if you look at the statements, they think, okay, the war with Iraq was God's gift because it's consolidated the Islamic Republic. But I think, by and large, the nuclear issue can be resolved. It can be resolved in this way, that, first of all, we have to recognize that Iran is not really an aggressive power. It had, and it could produce biological weapons to use against the Iraqis, which they didn't. The Iraqis used against the Iranians. Iran hasn't been aggressive against any of its neighbors. Iran has got certain legitimate regional interests that has to be taken into account. At the same time, the Iranians will have to understand and appreciate that others have got interests in that region. And they are not in a position to dictate on others what is their interest. It's a question of give and take and negotiations. And for that reason, I feel the key factor is talking. The threat of attacking Iran is a hollow. It has been there since the revolution. It hasn't happened, with the exception of Iraq. Okay, they can go and attack certain places. What would happen is that the Iranian people would unify as they did against Saddam Hussein. I know they've got enough of a problem with their own regime, but when it comes to nationalism, I think that kind of issues would be overcome. Having said that, it doesn't mean that the regime would be allowed to do what it wants, and the question of elections we know all about, and I don't want to go through that. But recognizing Iranian national interest, recognizing Iran as a power that has been in that part of the world for many centuries, means that you have to find a way of negotiating with it. I think we've got 2 problems. One is that Iran's lack of appreciation of other people's interests in that region. Second, the competition or the rivalry that has been created in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. I think, in my view, Israel and Iran can have peace together, provided, first of all, Israel have a peace policy, peace strategy, rather than expansion strategy. I think it's none of Iran's business to interfere in what is happening in that. Nevertheless, I think it creates problem in negotiating. Why Ahmadinejad is popular in the Arab world is because of the Israeli policy towards the Palestinians. I think the Iranians can do without that one. I think, as the Iranian leaders have been saying, they would accept whatever policy the Palestinian people would accept. And I think that has been said in the past, and recently Ayatollah Khamenei repeated that. So, when it comes to the question of nuclear, I feel that the Iranians would like to keep the issue as ambiguous as possible. Because if you are threatening them, they want to say, okay, if you are threatening us, we want to have the nuclear technology, at the same time we want to remain ambiguous. They have said they don't want nuclear power. Okay, there's a statement that has been made. Recently, Ayatollah Montazeri gave a fatwa that is against religious interest and haram and so forth, but interests of the states have always dictated otherwise, as we have seen it in the past, so there's no point to emphasize on that one. Nevertheless, I think negotiation is the only way forward. Reduction of nuclear powers in that region is important. Joining India, Pakistan and Israel in NPT is very important, and I feel it's a very good sign that President Obama and recently Mr. Brown has been saying that they want to really decrease their nuclear weapons, and they've been talking with Russia. I think you have to create an atmosphere of confidence and negotiate with Iran. It may be difficult, it may be tiring, it may be exhausting, sometimes you may feel frustrated, but that's the only way forward. Attacking Iran will only give you the opposite result. Having said that, I think the Iranian establishment, and especially Ayatollah Khamenei, really we have to stand above the institutions.